Well, hello there, my young readers, and welcome back to the channel. And if you're new, welcome. We've got a great story for you guys. I think it's a fun one, and it's being brought to you by Author. So, if you don't have them ready, go ahead, go get your snacks, go get your drinks, pause the video, run to the bathroom, come on back, and we'll get started. So stay tuned. The name of this story is called Author, It's Only Rock and Roll by Mark Brown. Muffy was watching a Backstreet Boys video again. "How can you watch those sellouts?" said Francine. "They don't care about music. They just want to make money." "If you had a band," said Muffy, "you'd sell out in 5 minutes." "If I had a band," said Francine, "it would be 1,000,000 times better than the Backstreet Boys, and I'd never sell out." Muffy snorted. "Oh, yeah? Prove it." "I will," Francine stormed out. Everyone wanted to try out for Francine's new rock band, but auditions weren't going well. Francine had rejected everybody so far. George came out of the music room shaking his head sadly. "Next!" shouted Francine. "I can't believe I auditioned 14 people and they all stank. Except you, of course," said Francine. "You know what they say, honey," Mrs. McGrady said. "If the mountain won't come to Muhammad, then Muhammad must go to the mountain." "Go to the mountain?" said Francine. "So, who are the best musicians we know?" Francine went to Binky's house first. "Will there be snacks?" Binky asked. Francine nodded. "Okay," said Binky. "I'm in." Then Francine asked Molly and Fern to join her band. "Francine wanted them, but not us," said Buster. He and Arthur couldn't believe it. At the band's first rehearsal, Francine was very excited. "Guess what?" she said. "Mr. Haney wants us to perform at the PTA fundraiser." "But we don't even have a name yet," Molly said. "We'll think of something," said Francine. "Let's play." "Stop that noise!" yelled a neighbor. "You stink!" "You stink too!" yelled Francine. "You..." At the PTA fundraiser, Mr. Haney introduced the band. "I am pleased to present the musical stylings of you..." He paused. "Stink!" the whole band called out. They started to play. The audience went wild. "You stink! You stink! You stink!" the crowd chanted. The next day at school, the TV show Almost Live wanted to interview Francine. "So, what's next?" asked the reporter. "Another concert? A record deal? A tour?" "Music isn't about making money," said Francine. "You stink will never sell out. We'd rather quit." After school, Francine told Fern and Binky what had happened. "We could have been on TV," said Fern. "No way," said Francine. "We're not sellouts." The Tibble twins ran over. "Aren't you Francine Frinsky?" asked Timmy. "Can we have your autograph?" asked Tommy. "It's you stink!" shouted some other kids. Francine walked away, but the others stayed behind to sign autographs. "Let's form our own band," said Arthur. "It can't be that hard," said George. "It's only rock and roll." "And we can call our band We Stink," said Buster. "Perfect," said Arthur. Later that day, Francine saw Binky, Fern, and Molly on TV. "What are your plans?" asked the reporter. "Well," said Fern, "maybe we could make a CD." "Or some action figures," Binky said. Francine was furious. Those traitors! At rehearsal, Francine was still angry about the TV interview. "Those people want us to sell out," she said. "It's not selling out to go on TV," said Fern. "It is so," said Francine. "Binky, do you want to sell out?" He thought for a minute. "Maybe. I need new pants." "That's it," Francine said. "I'm leaving You Stink, 'cause you stink." The next morning, Mr. Haney announced that You Stink would be performing at the city's library's book sale. Francine overheard Muffy and Prunella talking about You Stink. "What happened to Francine?" asked Muffy. "Oh, she quit the band," Prunella said. "The real news is that I just got tickets to the Backstreet Boys concert. My father's a sponsor," Muffy said, "so I get to go backstage." Meanwhile, We Stink was having its first rehearsal. "I hate to tell you guys," hollered DW, "but you stink." "No," Arthur said, "we stink. Our name is We Stink." "That's what I said," DW answered. "You stink." "Arthur, can you rehearse outside?" shouted Mom. "We need the piano," yelled Arthur. With Francine gone, You Stink had to rehearse at Fern's house. "We can't keep playing the same thing over and over," said Mrs. McGrady. "Can anyone write music?" Molly asked, "besides Francine?" Mrs. McGrady, Fern, and Binky shook their heads. The next day, Muffy had plans to make You Stink famous. "I'm your new manager. I've decided we'll do a video and send it to the Backstreet Boys. Then we'll go on tour with them." Then she stopped when she saw Francine's angry face. "Sell out," Francine said to Fern and stalked away. Later that day, Francine decided to join the competition. She offered to drum for We Stink. But they hadn't played for long before Francine stopped them. "George, can't you sing on key?" she asked. "What's on key?" asked George. "You guys are terrible," said Francine. "You need some more players, good ones." "Hey, this is our band," said Buster. "If you don't think we're good enough, well, I quit." "Me too," said Arthur. At the Backstreet Boys concert that night, the reporter from Almost Live saw You Stink waiting in line. "What's new with You Stink?" she asked. "Nothing. That's the problem," said Molly. "We need a new drummer, a new song." "We do not," said Fern. "What about my new song?" asked Binky. "It hurts my ears," Molly said. The three of them began to argue. "Is this the end of You Stink?" said the reporter. "Stay tuned." Backstage, Muffy jumped into the elevator with Nick. Just as it began to move, she pushed the stop button. "What happened?" Nick asked. "We seem to have stopped," said Muffy. "So let me tell you about the deal of a lifetime for you and the boys." She pulled down a slide screen. "It's the chance to tour with my band, You Stink. Here's how the profits look." The other boys stood behind the stage curtain waiting for Nick. The audience was getting restless. "Can't you go on without Nick?" Mr. Crosswire asked. Kevin shook his head. "We need him." "Did anyone check the elevator?" asked AJ. Muffy answered the elevator phone. "Hi, Daddy," she said. "No, I haven't closed the deal yet." "The boys need Nick to start the concert," said Mr. Crosswire. "I can't hold off the crowd forever." Muffy pushed the start button. but nothing happened. She pushed it again. Still nothing. Daddy, we really are stuck, Muffy said. She paused. But I have an idea. Mr. Crosswire went to the microphone. There's been a slight delay with the boys, but I'd like to announce that You Stink is here, and their manager says they'd love to perform for you. I can't go up there, gasped Binky. Not without Francine. You have to, Binky, said Molly. Francine? We really need you, Francine, said Fern. Will you come with us, please? After a moment, Francine smiled. All right, let's rock. On stage, Francine looked out at the huge crowd and froze. Francine, we need a beat, said Molly. Francine, whispered Fern. But Francine couldn't move. Then she heard a voice in her ear. It was Brian. Don't look at the crowd. Just think about the music. Francine took a deep breath and started playing. Fern began to sing. Her voice was shaky. Then Kevin's voice joined in. Then AJ and Howie D began to sing too. The boys harmonized with You Stink and even made up a new verse. The song was better than ever. By the end of the song, Nick had joined everyone on stage and the crowd was cheering wildly. You Stink got to watch the rest of the concert from backstage. Wow, Francine said. They're really good. It's only the beginning for You Stink, Muffy said. Today, Elmwood City. Tomorrow, the world. No way, said Binky. I don't like crowds. I have to quit. Me too, said Molly. This blister on my finger is killing me. And I miss playing bingo, said Mrs. McGrady. But everyone loved us, said Fern. Yeah, Francine agreed. Are you sure you guys want to quit? Molly, Binky, and Mrs. McGrady all nodded. After the show, Francine apologized to the boys. I'm sorry I called you sellouts, Francine said. You guys are really good musicians. It's okay to want fame, just don't forget the most important part, music. Howie D handed Muffy her pie chart and slides. Very professional. You could be our manager, he joked. Did you hear that? Said Muffy. Maybe in a few years I can reunite You Stink and the Backstreet Boys on tour. It's actually pretty smart for You Stink to break up. It'll create demand. It'll create buzz. Well, that ends our story. And like I told you, this was going to be a fun one, but it was filled with plenty of takeaways.
You can say that again. You know, Muffy and Francine are strong in their beliefs.
Yeah. Francine, she's kind of dominant with hers. And, you know, she's talented. She's got that talent. She's driven. She's an organizer. You can see it. You can't not see it with her. And with Muffy, she's more like a quiet riot kind of thing. But in her, with her, she's driven. But she has some serious talent. She's got a business, a marketing, a financial skill set that's going to take her far.
And you know what? I don't want to, dismiss Francine so quickly because, yeah, she's driven. Yeah, she's an organizer. She's talented, but understand what this means. And also with her domination, that organization, she was able to put together that band. Without her, there would be no You Stink.
Mm-hmm.
And when she left, remember, Molly had to ask, does anyone else in this band know how to write music? The answer was no.
Not at all.
Francine was the only one who could do that. So she had a lot of skill that the band needed in order to make the band a band.
And that's true. That's true. And the thing about it is, if I know that she's the only one that can write music, make new music, I'm kind of not going to, tick her off too much, because I don't want her to do what she did, which is leave the band and, basically left them high and dry. And they tried to continue on without her, but they realized quickly that really wasn't working. And one of the things that amazed me was, of the band, they had an adult with them.
That's right. They had Mrs. McGrady, and I think she played the keyboard. And I think she must have sung, because Francine did mention that of the people that she interviewed or auditioned, none of them could sing or had talent except for her. So I'm like, okay, so Mrs. McGrady didn't have anything better to do. So she was going to hang out with the kids and play the keyboard.
But that was really, really nice of her to do. But you know what? The problem, if you want to call it that, with what Francine was that in her mind, she really took the art of the music to heart. And she didn't really want to deal with the finance part of it. She felt that you're a sellout if you go on TV, if you're marketing, because in her mind, it's become about the money and not the music.
It seemed to trigger her anytime somebody, wanted to interview them or mention anything about CDs, a tour, or anything. I thought that was going a little too far, but hey, that, dream the dream. But just to mention it, it would trigger her and she would just go off, and nobody seemed to understand that in the band, because the band members, especially, Fern, she really wanted to do all of that. She wanted to be able to do the TV show, the CD, the tour. She was really into it and gung-ho about that. But she just could not convince Francine at that time to do it.
Nope, not at all. Francine was committed to not being a sellout. And what that meant to her was she was not to go on any shows. She wasn't going to do any tours. None of that, because to her that meant sellout. But I think in the end, she did kind of see where it wasn't about that, and that it didn't mean being a sellout. But did you see how Muffy did? Muffy found out that Francine quit the band, and she slid on into a manager's position.
Quiet riot.
And she just went in there and told them, I've decided to be your manager, and this is what we're going to do. Wow.
Well, you know what? It'd be something different if she did that and could not produce, any positive results from it. But she did. Her dad, I believe, was the principal of the school, and she was able to get them singing with the Backstreet Boys. She was able to do a lot. And remember, towards the end of the story, she was seeing things way in the future. She's looking at taking over the world with her management skills and bringing the bands together. So I thought, if, Muffy and Francine actually worked together, oh, they would be an awesome duo right there.
I couldn't agree more with you. Unfortunately, they worked more against each other in this story than with each other. And that was just, unproductive when they did that.
Well, little darling, that's my time. I have got to go, and I will see all of you all in the next episode. Bye!
Well, there goes Miss Triangel. Well, we both enjoyed this story, and I'm hoping you guys did too. Until next time, my young readers, I am your little darling narrator, out.